cleared the last pro-Russian fighters from this small regional centre in late September. But authorities here are having serious difficulties trying to organise Ukrainian elections. Yana Pokidina has a list of people nominated to staff the area's 60 local electoral commissions. But with no one local willing to work, it seems officials simply wrote down random names and numbers.
You live in Kiev? I see. So as I understand it, this is the first you've heard about being deputy head of an electoral commission here in Popasna.
A week before polling day, Popasna had filled 5 out of around 600 positions. The town's acting mayor is determined to do his duty and still hopes at least some polling stations may open. But he has to be realistic.
I cannot force anyone to risk their life and come to work on that day, because provocations may happen.
A third of Popasna's population has fled due to the fighting. For those that are left, the elections are hardly a priority.
Да, я буду голосовать. Вы не знаете, что в Попасне находится?
Вова, ну слезь.
Украина.
Не знаю за Украину. Я-то Украины хорошего не увидела.
Вот пока бабушка, любая бабушка, как покажите стрелку стать, так бабушки голосуют. Откуда я знаю, який там депутат хороший? Мальчик, ну вот скажи, девочка.
Further along the front line, the town of Shastia near Luhansk is the scene of almost daily artillery battles. There will be no elections here. But there is a local candidate ready to listen to residents' problems.
Я тоже по поводу стекла. У меня как раз снаряд упал. Я на первом этаже живу на квартире.
Я не возражаю. В среду будут люди ставить в этом доме, продолжать. Вот то, что они замерили, то мы еще и вставим.
Дай, подожди, не лей, ну будет холодно, один.
Nikolai Grekov is a member of the Aidar Battalion, a semi-professional Ukrainian fighting unit stationed in Shastia. Despite his new military look, he's actually a veteran politician. But he's not bothered about having no chance of being elected this time.
The people of Shastia will soon be able to take part in new elections. Sooner rather than later, they'll be able to choose a responsible representative for this area. The fact that the vote is not happening this time is nothing to worry about. We don't need elections at the price of human life.
Aidar Battalion fighters know that the pro-Russians stationed less than a kilometre away hope to retake Shastia and the rest of Luhansk region. They read the separatists' newspapers, after all. Still, in Severodonetsk, the second largest city in Luhansk region and a good deal further from the front, polling is scheduled to go ahead. It's hardly election fever, though.
There is campaigning going on, but less than usual, fewer billboards, and mainly just these tents you see.
The most active party here is the opposition bloc, heir to Viktor Yanukovych's Party of Regions, traditionally popular in the east. Though campaigning in a Ukrainian election, its activists would not condemn the pro-Russians.
They're not separatists, they're people defending their homeland, not the same thing.
Representatives of Opora, an independent election watchdog, confirmed that latent separatist sympathies would likely lead to low turnout in these elections. But they also noted that one of the candidates was making a particularly determined effort to boost the vote.
We have confirmed information about vote buying by one of the candidates. That is the opposition bloc's Vitaly Bakulin.
Several videos circulating online show how Yevgeny Bakulin's representatives pay voters the equivalent of 12 euros for promising to vote for him. They aren't happy to be filmed doing this. The man being beaten in this video is actually a rival candidate, Sergei Shakun. He's been fighting to prove that representatives of the old regime are up to the same old dirty tricks.
They closed mines, closed factories, robbed small businesses. So now people are poor. And when you offer to buy poor people's votes for 12 euros, well, they sell.
Severodonetsk's main factory, the Azot chemical plant, is owned by the oligarch Dmitro Firtash, who is close to the opposition bloc's leadership. Rival parties say Firtash will stop at nothing to make sure his candidate wins here. But they're campaigning outside the factory all the same.
I'm finding not everyone reacts very well to me. I understand that workers from the Azot factory have been under a lot of pressure from representatives of the opposition bloc.
The opposition bloc's leader, Yuri Boyko, was in Severodonetsk at the same time we were. He met with voters inside the factory. But he refused to speak to us.
Well, for more on this, we're joined now from Kiev by the head of mission for the OSCE's human rights body, Tana de Zulueta. Hello, thank you very much for being with us on France 24. And clearly the separatists shouldn't set the democratic agenda, but doesn't this partial poll leave the east of the country in political limbo, as well as in danger of fresh attacks linked to the election?
As you know, we were invited to observe this election, an early election held at challenging times. 3 million people live in those areas affected by the fighting and risk being deprived of the right to vote. This is one thing that we have to take into account and report on. Some of them may be able to vote as re-registered voters in other areas, but the numbers who have registered are apparently a small fraction of those who actually moved. And the polling that will take place there is taking place in extremely challenging circumstances, as you yourselves have witnessed. So should it be going ahead nonetheless? It's going ahead, and we've been invited to observe it as it is. So we'll have to report our findings afterwards on the adequacy or otherwise.
Well, we just saw claims of corruption and vote buying. Is that an issue only in the divided east of the country?
No. It's an issue across the country and was even more so in the past parliamentary elections. There's great mistrust of the system, and allegations of vote buying have been flying thick and fast. Some of them were substantiated, and a number have been followed up by the prosecutors' offices. So it's something a problem that is dogging this election, and we'll see the extent to which it affects the outcome. There is little trust in the electoral system because of past outright corruption. So this is one of the challenges we face, and we will have to report on.
And looking at Ukraine's political landscape, is it as varied as it should be?
It is extremely varied, perhaps more fractured than it's ever been before. For the first time, there are 29 parties on the proportional ballot list, and we have 6,000 candidates, 3,000 of which are running in single mandate constituencies. Only 250 single mandate constituencies, 3,000 candidates. It's extremely varied. It's indeed rather confusing for Ukrainian voters, you might say. The fact is that the political landscape has been profoundly changed by recent events, and party like the Party of Regions that formerly was dominant and the winner of last elections is now not running at all on the proportional ticket. So big changes and fractured landscape and some pretty hotly contested races on this election, and quite bitterly contested. Feelings are running high, and there is some degree of violence even in other parts of the country.
And your organisation also monitors rule of law, and it assists states in building and consolidating democratic institutions. What is the situation in Kiev?
Well, our mandate as OSCE election observation mission is limited to the election and its conformity with international standards and Ukrainian law. But naturally, we report on the environment in which this election is taking place, including the media environment and the general security, the safety of voters, how safe voters feel. It has to be said, life proceeds pretty normally everywhere, in Kiev particularly, but Ukrainians have an almost deceptive capacity and resilience to behave absolutely normally in fairly exceptional circumstances. We've seen that in moments of outright conflict just round the corner, mothers playing with their children in the parks. This can be, or the cafes with clients in them, this can be deceptive. We have given our observers attentive briefing on security issues because of the large number of weapons that are circulating and the large number of arrests that have been made, with violent incidents increasing as we approach the vote.
Tanada Zuleta, thank you very much for having talked to us. Thank you. Well, let's move now to our sports update, and we start with football.